today's webinar. This is the agenda. And of course, I've already taken the welcome address and would proceed to introduce the panelists and then the presentation and the poll questions, panel discussions, questions and answer, closing. That's the order for today's webinar. Please, next slide. So for today, we have this amazing young lady that has been making impact in environmental engineering and of course, sustainable development. She is Esoki Fakante. She is an environmental engineer with a focus on sustainable development. She is also a project manager and engineer with over 3 years experience on clean energy and clean cooking projects. She is passionate about bridging knowledge gaps around clean energy technologies and energy access. This has led her to work on researches around productive use of renewable energy, green hydrogen, and clean cooking. Apart from implementing impactful projects with Overa Energy, where she works currently, she is the programs director for Cyrus X Energy Academy and also the head of logistics for Africa International Conference on Clean Energy and Energy Storage, ISS. And of course, she would not be steering the course of this conversation alone. We have panelists that will be joining us to dissect this topic. So we have all the way from East Africa, Solomon Ateko. He's a passionate environmentalist and a renewable energy expert with over 7 years of experience. He has been leading sustainable development initiatives across East Africa. His work focuses on intersection of innovation, policy, and community impact, and as well tackling pressing issues such as deforestation, energy, and climate change. Solomon has played a significant role in advancing clean cooking solutions in Uganda, particularly through promoting the scale-up of electric cooking technologies. Currently, he works as a climate change advisor for the GIZ Global Carbon Markets Project in Uganda and East Africa. So for today, Solomon Ateko will be joining us and making a presentation and also will be contributing to this topic. So at this juncture, I would hand over to the moderator for today. Amazing Esoki Fakante should be steering the course of today's discussion. So over to you, Esoki.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Ms. Johnson. I am super honored to be here. If you have been following 54 Sparks, you would know that we started with talking about policies and how it has influenced the expansion of clean cooking, especially across Africa. And then we also talked about how financing has also affected and influenced the scaling of clean cooking. But then we're a little bit worried about technologies and how they also affect clean cooking. And so that brought us to this episode, the 6th episode, where we'll be talking about how digital technologies really influence the scaling of clean cooking across Africa. We know that in Africa, we have a lot of knowledge gap. We have financing issues. We also have technical issues because we know that most of the persons that use dirty fuels in cooking are situated in the rural areas, and a lot of them really do not have much knowledge about the digital technologies and all these advancements that have come around clean cooking technologies. And we really want to know, is this a good thing for Africa as regards clean cooking, or it's something that we should be hopeful about? Thank you so much, Mr. Solomon, for joining us today. This is really, really going to be an exciting session for me. I would really love to see what you have to share with us. And thank you for making our time to be here. I would hand over to you to take the floor for your presentation.
Thank you very much, Johnson, and thank you, Esoki, for inviting me here. I'm very delighted to join the team and basically share my views and thoughts on how the new technologies can actually shape the direction for clean cooking. And I'm very glad to be a presenter here. Besides knowing what I've done, I'm also excited that I'll be learning from all of you. And just listening to you is also enough for me to learn. But for context, allow me just to share my PowerPoint, and then we can dive into the discussion. Okay. Right. Can we confirm that it's looking okay on your end?
Perfect from my end.
Yeah, already the introduction has been done, so I wouldn't go into doing the introduction again. Yeah, but those are
Well,
my
we don't mind knowing you better, though.
Yeah, but those are my contact details, just in case you want to get to know me better. I am from Uganda. I have lived in Uganda for the last 3+ decades, working within Uganda and East Africa, as already had been mentioned. My focus has been more on clean cooking, ideally, until most recently, where I have really moved to put a lot of effort into the carbon market space. However, I've done other projects around water and environment. Basically, my background is in environment and a bit of business. So that is what I would add to what had not been mentioned.
Okay.
So quickly, basically, for us to understand the topic and what it means for us in promoting access. The big thing here that comes are the two words, digital technologies, then of course clean cooking. And I wanted to give a bit of a context. What are they and what does it involve and where does it fit within the clean cooking, say, sector if we're talking about it? And for context, when you talk about digital solutions, you're talking about tools or systems, basically tools and systems. And most of them are electronic systems. I'm sure we all have smartphones, at least for the biggest majority of the youth population. Maybe the older ones may not be having it. But when you talk about, say, smartphones as a tool or a hardware, you're talking about cameras, you're talking about computers, and in the context of clean cooking, you're talking about smart meters and the likes. All those are basically digital examples of digital tools. And they facilitate a lot of things related to creating information, storing it, and managing it. And when you talk about clean cooking, that is what you'd be focusing on. How is information created? How is information managed? How is information stored? And what tools can we use in the clean cooking space to facilitate these initiatives? Because in the end, it contributes to how we're going to promote access. So digital systems or digital tools are mainly in the form of soft and hardware, and in the software angle is more dealing with how information is stored in this case. So we have cloud computing as an example, Internet of Things, blockchain, all this dealing a lot largely with information. And so it looks at the journey of collecting, managing, storing, and using that information, of course, to make decisions. So an email, a survey, personal data that you collect, a voice that you hear, all those things contribute to, I mean, it's mainly being used, they're using digital tools to facilitate them. So I thought I should help us get a context, at least for us to know generally what are digital tools, and what are they, and how are they being used. And in the context of today's topics, when you talk about clean cooking, we're looking at an economic activity, ideally, which of course facilitates the development of nations or contributes to sustainable developments. So in the context of economies and how digital solutions have been used previously, they've looked at it in the angle of supply, they've looked at it in angle of production and manufacture. They've looked at it in the supply design, because in the end, products move from one place to another in those 3 layers. And throughout those processes, digital tools are being used, either in collecting information or relaying information, so that in the end, decisions can be made, yeah, or even storing just information. So when you look at, say, when you look at production, we've had where people are using smart technologies basically to construct a stove in this case, or design a stove, which is in this case modeled and then of course channeled to the markets in this case. So with digital tools, we've seen, of course, production improving, efficiency growing, and the quality of the products improving. And one of the biggest concerns that we have, especially in the clean cooking space, is the guarantee that the product that is being sold is gonna be safe for the users. And one of the ways that they're doing it is to ensure that there's automation of processes during the manufacture, so that in the end, what you get is A, and it's exactly A. It doesn't have any defects, or if the defects are there, then they're very, very minimal. Then throughout transport or supply to reach the end user, we've had information being relayed to customers and the likes. Then, of course, the customer side, you as a person, how do you access these technologies? You must have data, and these data are normally stored through different channels, which we'll get to know later on, as I explained. For now, as we speak, what we know, of course, 2.3 billion people globally do not have access to clean cooking solutions. What we mean is that they're using polluting fuels, they're using agricultural waste, which of course are contributing to different complications, which could be health, and health is one of the biggest one, but also environmental pollution, all tunneling around using polluting fuels or traditional technologies. And because of that, on an annual basis, about 3.7 million people dying at an age which is very young, in a sense, that they're not supposed to die at that age, but they die because they have inhaled smoke for a long time and it has affected them. Majority of them being women, and in the context of Africa, I mean, if in the context of global scale, if you're looking at Africa or Sub-Saharan Africa, we contribute like almost half of that statistics. This is statistics which is disturbing, and because of that, efforts are there to promote clean cooking. So in terms of promoting numbers, we see that other countries, especially Asia, Asia, basically the rich states like China are really at a higher scale in terms of promoting clean cooking solutions. But when you look at Sub-Saharan Africa, the numbers are so low. When you look at beyond 2022, the figures are saying that Africa will have to rise to the ladder. Why? Because the majority of the population in Africa are having this challenge, and there's a lot of opportunity there, and very many investors are exploring that. In terms of access, what is being projected right now is really put at scale like that. The numbers are still very low, but if you look at clean cooking solutions such as LPG, electricity, biogas, and ethanol, natural gas, the thinking is by 2030, we should have at least 12% of the communities or the population in the world having access to electricity. Of course, right now, the scenario is that Africa has really less than even 1%. If you look at Africa in general, majority of them are below 4%. Some countries don't have access to electricity, electric cooking at all. Then a few have, majority of them are less than 10%. LPG is a bit significant in the sense, largely I think in the western parts of Africa, Nigeria, Ghana really playing a significant role here in terms of using LPG. Then, of course, as we know, because of the availability of biomass, or in this case, charcoal and firewood, majority also are using biomass, basically a wood and firewood to deal with their cooking. So the thinking is that as we move on into 2030, then more people should be able to adopt these improved cooking technologies. The goal is to have at least 33% of us transition. And the thinking here is that While efforts are there to promote universal access to clean cooking solutions, we'll have to look at a vast range of technologies and not only focus on one technology, because it may not be one size fits all, likely because of the fact that most of the societies are either stacking fuel. You find someone has LPG and maybe an improved charcoal stove, or you have someone having biogas and an improved charcoal stove, or someone has electric technology and another stove. So that is the case that you find across the communities. So the thinking is that as we transition into modern and cleaner fuels, then we will have to target the spread in that sense. In the context of digitalization or digital technologies, I would say that we need to look at clean cooking as a business or as any enterprise that runs. And if you're bringing in digital solutions, then we are looking at it in a sense of data and how this data is made available, because all the decisions around promoting, increasing access to these technologies really rely on data. Who has what and how is it helping them? How do they get this information about the technology? How do they buy it? All the things are really focused on that. In the real world, in the absence of technology, in the absence of digital technologies, they would use the normal methods that have been used. I, Solomon, reaches out to someone else if I have a stove that I want someone to get. And if I want to tell them something about that, then I need to reach out to them and show them the product. Internet or digital technologies is now bringing the revolution in this case, that they're bringing it closer to the communities. However, the big issue is how much of it has been used, especially to channel this to people who would be at last mile, people who have been disadvantaged, people who have been left out. So with the evolution of internet, of course, there came a lot of digital solutions that emerged. Right now, you can easily get personal data about someone through internet with just searching their name. As long as you have the name, you could probably get the information about them, where they work, what they're doing. And so that brought in the digitalization era, which looks at blockchain, information being stored, big data such as, blockchain in this case, looking at ledgers or information being stored about the use of a product for quite some time. Big data looking at, for example, Facebook, TikTok and the likes. They have a lot of information that they collect from everyone who uses the technology, and they're using algorithms to basically even advertise products that you use. If you use Facebook, if you use, for example, YouTube and you're watching videos, you get advice based on how your interest is. If you're studying, you probably get an information around that. And then, of course, AI comes into the picture, promoting efficiency in terms of how things are done, and even basically coming up with stories that speak a lot about that. But in this case, for clean cooking, in this case, most of the focus has really been on cloud computing, and this is where a lot of information is stored on the cloud for those that have access to it. And that's information that is stored in the cloud is then used by people who are championing these technologies to either scale or monitor or manage even their processes. And all this is being made possible through, of course, internet largely, but also, of course, telecommunication networks contributing to that. So as a move in, of course, when you look at any operation, if you want to reach a product somewhere, then you have to look at the process. And digital solutions are actually creating a very good opportunity for now people to be more efficient, be able to trace where the products are. Right now, you can buy something from China and use your phone to track where it is moving. If you've used a digital platform, say, to buy a meal at an outlet and you see that at home, you can tell that whoever is delivering the product has reached point A, has reached point B, is in 2 minutes to reaching, and all those things. So these are things that are being used in the real world. But the question is, has it been used in the clean cooking space? Yeah. In terms of course, cost saving, if if I need to travel more than once to get a product, then it costs me more. But we can actually have cost sharing coming here in a sense that when you order something from point A and the distance is maybe 10 kilometers, you are able to see the coverage and tell that within this time, I'll be able to pay this amount of money, and sometimes you save the money there. You save time to do something else that is productive. So that is what digital technologies is actually contributing in the space of economy, in the build-up of economies. The example here is more of a pharmaceutical company supply chain, where they're using blockchain technologies basically to track and follow the progress of how things are moving from within the warehouse up to the final user. And they're getting also feedback from the users of these technologies. So with information, which of course digital solutions provide, then we can tell where we are in terms of who to reach, where as an entrepreneur, where we are in terms of where we can reach, but also helps us to know the distribution in terms of scale, who has the product. If you're using, say, digital solutions or satellite images or satellite information to know the location or trace where the products are, being used, all these things is being contributed by digital solutions. And the big ask for us in this discussion today is, where does it fit within the clean cooking sector? And how can we optimize it to ensure that we scale clean cooking solutions? Another way is through consumer growth and retention, and this is basically what would speak more. The other one is on ensuring that the products are always available whenever needed. But here it's now ensuring the customers are either using the product, or even you're getting in new customers. With, of course, digital solutions, you can be able to store data on who is using what, how long they've used it, when did they start using it. And you can also tell, for example, if a product has a lifespan of, say, 5 years, then if someone bought it in 2020, by 2025, they should probably need to replace it. And that helps you, of course, to track how you've served the client in the long run. But it also provides an opportunity for us, largely, or entrepreneurs in this case, in the space, to know and get feedback from clients in this. Could be surveys. Originally, people have used surveys where they go to the field, which is time consuming. But right now, you can literally create a digital survey and you send it out to whoever has access to internet, for example, and they fill it out and you get your feedback in real time. So that is what digital solutions is actually contributing in the space. That is what other economies are actually using right now to basically promote their products. And that's something that I think Clean Cooking Solutions is beginning to take up. They're also trying to use. The biggest limitation and hindrance here has likely been on either initial costs of investment or establishing these technologies or even acquiring these technologies. And that has been a big hindrance, which of course in the end also contributes to the overall cost of the product. And here the thinking is you should minimize costs if you're going to scale. Because in the end, someone wants to buy something that is quality. Someone wants to buy something that is quality in real time, but also you also want to minimize your cost of reaching that product. And digital solution is one way that people have utilized it to actually minimize their costs, reach more clients, and retain them and get the feedback from them. In the clean cooking sector, I chose to basically narrow it to two main ones, which are, I think, from the discussions that we're having, and that's something that we really had for quite some time in the energy space. One being the pay-go system, which is basically the digital business model, an example that I'd give, but then also look at carbon markets and carbon finance as an example, and how this could be used to basically promote and scale clean cooking solutions to even reach the last mile in this case, communities. So in the context of PayGo, the examples are quite many, but PayGo, of course, is why you're basically reducing the burden or handling the issues related to the cost of the product. For every African country where most African countries where people are earning less than $2, normally the cost of, say, clean cooking solutions on average could be, say, $45, may look or may seem to be very expensive. But throughout time, very many business models have come up where they are shouldering the burden that would have come in terms of purchasing a product, and they're saying, no, pay some amount, then you'd be paying on an installment basis, where you could use a mobile money for the case of Uganda, M-Pesa for the case of Kenya, for example, and other mobile payment platforms where you pay on installment to be able to cover the would-be expensive cost for people to access. And of course, in the end, now you're being more inclusive and inviting even those who would not be able to provide a product. An example here is where they're using a digital platform to get information. And it ties back to what I said earlier on. A lot of information is being stored using a smartphone app to know, hey, so-and-so has and he bought it on this date. We expect them to probably finish it at this time. Then they can send reminders and get them to actually make payments or even just receive feedback from them without going to the field. And with that, of course, it helps them to innovate more. With information, you're able to innovate more. You're able to actually make decisions that help you actually to grow the business or even look at scaling to the target clients that you have. This fits well, especially for rural communities and hard to access areas where you need to do a single payment and the rest of it could be through a phone conversation. Of course, one big challenge here that stands is more on the fact that whether the infrastructure that we have as Africa can actually facilitate such innovations to reach the last mile. Then in the context of carbon projects and ideally carbon finance, which relies so much on data and credible data, being able to automate data collection processes, being able to verify information in real time gives credibility to whoever is investing in your product. Also gives the credibility to the verifiers to be able to get data efficiently and reliably. And that accounts especially more in saving costs that would otherwise been used in, say, transporting someone, say from Asia to Africa. They lose time, they at some time lose time traveling, but also it costs you more if you have a project here and someone is coming to verify. So people are exploring the digital tools, especially on the electric one. I've seen also in the biogas sector where information is being collected in real time, collecting information on usability of the product. So I can tell that someone cooked, say, for this long within this time period. And of course, that information is readily available in real time. And it's easy to track. So standards bodies like Gold Standard are exploring this and they're actually trying to ensure that the methodologies that are being applied is trustworthy so that investment can actually can come in. And in the context of electric cooking, it's turning out to be quite a probable solution. And when you look at whatever is being done in the space, we're trying to promote that. I think the thermometers that have also, thermal sensors that have already been explored also in Asia to do that. And when we look at, of course, the statistics, right now, if you're looking at investment within, say, the clean cooking sector, carbon projects is said to contribute over 20% of that revenue. And it's being seen as a probable solution, especially in reaching last mile customers in this case with a product that suits their needs, but also is able to serve for quite some time. Yeah. So all this data about this for a long time has been analog, where you send someone in the field, but this is what is being explored lately to ensure that information is collected. And without digital tools, that wouldn't be possible. Without cloud computing, for example, would not be able to tell what's happening in the field, because now you just need a survey and the information reaches the server right intact. Yeah. So I think the examples of companies that are exploring it now in the context of Africa, Band Manufacturing is one of them. Africa Clean Energy is another one. I think App Energy also recently launched the product and trying to also explore these options to ensure that the data is credible, because in the end, the credits that are got from such projects is much more higher, and it brings the confidence to the investors who want to put in. Therefore, as we look at digital solutions as a contributor to promoting clean cooking, promoting access to clean cooking, I position myself and say there are three things that could potentially work for us. It will help in cost reduction. One, why cost reduction? When the operational cost is high, then in the end, whoever is going to use the technology is going to feel the pinch of the cost of the product. But when automation has been done, then definitely it trickles down to the end price of the product, which in the end could contribute to allowing people being able to access these solutions without the burden of having to pay higher prices. Two, it also facilitates innovation. Overall, throughout this clean cooking space, a lot of products have come, and throughout the process, as we're looking at, say, enhancing credibility, people or enterprises are innovating, say, solutions and embedding these digital solutions into them. So they are already like a part of the solution. And of course, that in the end is facilitating innovation, but also it's allowing the marketing of these products, or the creation of awareness of these products, to be much more easier. I've seen, say, YouTube. I've seen, for example, TikTok videos where someone is promoting a technology, and because of that, someone refers them to that. So that is also enabling people who may not have had information about the product to be able to access it. The other thing, it's promoting partnerships, and I think that stands out quite well. When you look at, say, a digital platform that has been, or a digital system that has been created that is looking at, say, PayGo, ideally, and a manufacturer can be there, work with a distributor, which distributor can also work with, say, a financial institutions to invest. So everyone has a role to play, and digital solution is one way that could bridge the gap to ensuring that it reaches like the final consumer in the sector. So when we have, say, a banking institution that is offering that upfront cost, or even PayGo systems in this case, or loan products, then if they're working with an institution that has a credible digital solutions that monitor payment plans like that, it guarantees and gives the opportunity for investors to actually put in money and know that this is a viable business which I can invest in. And looking at how clean cooking is looked at in Africa in this case, a lot of costs in terms of production in operations also affects in the end the final cost of the product that would reach the final consumer. But it also gives opportunity, for example, in the context of someone who wants to do repair and maintenance of these technologies. If a digital platform is established, then it's easy to link the customer to the original producer of the product than to someone who can actually fix those. And I think I've seen in Uganda some entities trying to exploit that as a solution. Most of them are at pilot stage, of course. But in terms of direction, I think clean cooking is moving in the right direction. The efforts that needs to be done here is more on ensuring that the policies favor the embedding of these technologies, allows for innovation to take place, especially if you look at the startups that we have within Africa, the digital infrastructure that we have in Africa. The cost of putting these technologies is normally high, but with policies that are right, then we can actually contribute a lot to scaling these technologies in the long run. Everyone doing business looks at it in the angle of, am I meeting the needs of my client? Am I meeting the needs of my clients? Is my client satisfied with how easy can they access my product? And those are the barriers that digital solutions can actually create to break all those challenges, to break those challenges that are related to accessing these technologies. So in conclusion, I would say that if we can only advance clean cooking as a sustainable solution for better health, we can only advance clean cooking as a sustainable solution for better health, clean environment, and a greater contribution to the Africa's development if we stop looking at clean cooking as a charity, but rather as a business with the potential to scale like any other commercial venture. And that statement, I just thought about it, and I was like, for the longest time, we have looked at, say, clean cooking as a charity, but we are moving away from that. And charities are never sustainable. Yeah, we need to run it as a business, which guarantees whoever is running the product or producing the product, whoever is involved in the process, money, but also ensures there's continuity in terms of service delivery and provision of these technologies. It's only through that we will be able to, say, reach universal access. Without us looking at it as a business or a social business, then I would say that we're doing a big mistake. So with that, I am asking a question, and I would want us to discuss here as we start, as we maybe reflect on, where do you see the opportunity? How can, say, innovators come into the space? Yeah. What can you do as say an African or as someone who has interest in clean cooking? The opportunities are quite there. You don't need to be a manufacturer of a stove, yeah, to be able to benefit within the clean cooking sector. Yeah. You could be the bank, you could be the investor, you could be the innovator of these technologies. You could be the one that is bridging the gap. So there's quite a lot that we can explore, and I am happy, looking forward to seeing what you see in the future, given the status. With that, I end and hand it back to Esuk.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Mr. Solomon. That was very, very enlightening. My key takeaway is that clean cooking should no longer be for charity, yeah? We need to make it business. Otherwise, we'll keep having challenges with scaling clean cooking solutions across Africa. And I totally agree with that. We've become too comfortable with giving out clean cooking stoves, clean cooking solutions for free, hoping that the adoption rate is going to increase. But then we keep forgetting that there are opportunities to actually earn. And, when people start investing, the opportunity to scale actually increases. Before we take the question and answer sessions, before we discuss this a little bit deeper, would like to take 4 questions. And that's going to be for a couple of minutes, say 2-3 minutes. So 4 questions are going to be running on your screen. Would really appreciate your participation. This helps us collect data from across Africa for further research concerning clean cooking. So please, once the poll questions pop up, kindly respond to them. So, Mr. Solomon, I'm quite interested in the supply chain management that you spoke about. how digital solutions really influence the supply of clean cooking appliances across Africa. Do you have case studies of this in Uganda? Did any of this actually work out in Uganda?
I can only give an example of okay, I'm thinking of just one right now that I have offhand. But yeah, you could compare it with other technologies that have worked. We have others that are being used for example, solar technologies. But in the context of clean cooking, right now there's a company named Bukona Agro Processing that is basically establishing such a digital platform that looks at, say, fuel use because they deal with the stove itself, but they also deal with the fuel itself. So for them, it's the interface between a fuel that is being used vis-a-vis the consumer interest. So they have a digital tool. Whoever buys a product from them gets a digital card, which has information about the consumer, where they're located, when they use the product, and they're basically testing it right now to see that when, say, a product is about to get done, they could actually allow the consumer to buy it. So right now they're still really piloting it. It's something that they thought through maybe last 2 years back to explore. I have seen also, I think from Kenya, the Cocoa Network, similar to the Cocoa Network, they're also looking at how they reach their clients long term. App Energy recently developed an app where, for example, where anyone can be, where a client is informed or can inform them about their experiences using the technology itself. They are using it basically, one, to manage their stock, what has gone, who has it, the serial number and the likes. But they're also using it to collect information from independent say customers, in this case, of sharing information or getting to know their experiences. Sometimes they run bonuses basically to encourage customers to use. Right now, I think also because they're developing it slowly, what they do is they have customer relations managers that are specifically targeting, say, one individual user. So it could be, I am Solomon, I have about 5 people that are under my docket that I'm managing, and basically through a chain of alerts, if customer X has an issue, then immediately the command center receives that information and knows who actually needs to receive that information. And so in this case, if it's Solomon who has to address the issues of that customer X, I can quickly know that this is my customer. So in this case, it is helping them retain the clients that they have initially taken, but it's also helping them to gather information about the experiences with using that technology. In this case, it's electric cooking. It's also they're using it to collect, say, data from the clients because the project is basically a carbon project. So because of that relationship that they have through the app and through the technology, they have like this frequent conversation with the clients, and whoever has received their products. I think from what I heard in the conversation last time is that the success rate has been really great. They've been able to address problems as and when it is coming, but also they've been able to get information as and when it's coming. And I think that is something that digital solution can provide. Yeah, because the information is there about the client, and that detail helps basically them to navigate and stay in touch with whoever they're dealing with.
Don't you think the customers should be really concerned when we speak about collecting so much data from them. I mean, data privacy is something that everybody should be concerned about. What policies or frameworks do we have around that?
Yeah, I think data protection policy, Uganda has a data protection policy basically. And I'll give an experience that I had. So that information is actually stored for the company, and during the time of collecting that data, everyone has to either consent. If they do not consent, then probably they wouldn't go. But the app also allows you to consent that this information. And clearly, when you're buying the product, they tell you the purpose is to be able to support you better. The purpose is to be able to support you better, but also provide any other services that you may need along the way. And they, according to policy, they're not allowed, or they can't just share information anyhow with anyone. It's just to help them get feedback on how the products can be improved, but also reach out to them as and when needed regarding either something that has come as a new one. And that's the thing that works also for say, carbon projects itself. You have to be able to trace whoever's bought the stove, for example. You have to be able to tell that the stove is in use, for example. Yeah. So if these products are not being used, and if you don't have like a client who is monitoring this information, or if you do not know these details, then in the end, you can't guarantee what you'd be offering as a service in the end. And that affects retention, usability, perception, and all those. And I think the biggest thing is having the laws in place that guarantee that every information that someone shares is staying with them and cannot just be used anyhow. So we have a data protection policy as Uganda that's, of course, is supposed to be abided for.
Well, we've spoken so much about how digital technologies are more beneficial to the manufacturers and those in the distribution line. What happens to the end users? I mean, we have local women that really don't know how to benefit from these things. How does digital technologies really influence their adoption? How can we use digital technologies to influence the adoption of clean cooking, especially in the rural areas where we have less educated people?
Yeah, I mean, that's a very great question. And speaking of digital tools, the question is, which digital tool are you using in this case? So first, it's you to understand which tool are you using, which one applies for what, because all of them, I mean, all of them have where they apply. And in the context of a rural woman, say, who doesn't have access to internet, for example, who doesn't have access to internet, for example, theirs is more about knowing how the product works and what are the benefits of the products. Because even when you talk about access, you're looking at, is the person aware? Does he know the benefit? Does he or she know the benefit of using that technology? Digital tools such as big data platforms that I've talked about. For example, if a marketeer is using a social media app to product or to showcase the products, know how it used, how it works and everything, that's something that could be shared and changes the mindset of someone else to take it. If my mother, who is in the rural area, doesn't have access to this technology, I got a chance to go and tell them the story of, say, this technology as an individual using, say, a video, a story, the video that tells a story, then you can influence the perception that that person has. Because I'll give from a Ugandan perspective, most old-aged people tend to want to use, say, the poor polluting fuels, largely because they're used to it. Yeah? Largely because they're used to it, is what they know. And in this case, it could be that they just lack the information about the benefit of using an alternative. And presenting an alternative through a digital platform is one way. Yeah. But also in the context of, say, an example of pay-go systems, where we're saying you could still pay on installment. You could still pay on installment. The first thing is just to introduce you to it and see how it works, or pay-go system, which basically monitors how or controls how you use the technology. that could be a plus, because I think in terms of access to technology, it goes along with, of course, infrastructure. If you're talking about mobile phones, then they should be able to have it. If they don't have it, then they'll probably not have access to it. And the simplest and the basic one here right now that most entities are exploring now is having a mobile phone. I think BIDASASA is also trying to explore it in Eastern Uganda, working with rural women groups, basically, and they're using basically champions. So in this case, sometimes you may not be able to reach all people, but you could get a champion within the society who has access to that digital tool and use that person to communicate the information about clean cooking. And in the end, they get the story. Of course, physically they'll be there, but also using a video that collects people in different gatherings is one way that you could still penetrate that.
Okay, so basically we just need to make it simpler for people in the local and rural areas so that it doesn't look too ambiguous for them. I'm also, my head is roving around how we can influence the health sector using digital tools around clean cooking. You know, all these data that we collect, I think that we can also use them to be able to manage data around, say, respiratory illnesses that comes from clean cooking and all of that. But then I really don't know if you have any experiences around government's behavior around those things, because a lot of persons feel like, okay, I'm adopting clean cooking because I do not want to have respiratory challenges. Yeah, I'm trying to have cleaner air. It's more convenient. But how do we use this data that the digital technologies are actually extracting to improve the health sector? Do you think it's something that is already in place or we should actually encourage? Because I feel that's one of the benefits that we can get from merging digital technologies with clean cooking solutions.
Yeah, I think you kind of resonate with what my thinking is, and I would say that data is one way that can help us to integrate efforts. Yeah. And digital solutions is one way. I mean, if we have information that is accessible to the health industry, that is accessible to the environment department or ministry, that is accessible to the innovators, then it speaks more to how we can integrate efforts, how we can develop strategies to be able to actually reach the target with a holistic approach. And I want to agree with you that that is something that needs to be explored. Why? Because most government institutions or policymakers have been working in silo. I think it's most recently that I think a wake-up call has been made that if I am in the health and I'm promoting the solution, and talking about health, then ideally the health person should also be able to share that. And this data or this information is something that can be a collaborative effort. And if projects can emerge, for example, around that, if you're talking about, say, a health complication that is respiratory, of course, not only the smoke that will be a contributor, but others may be a contributor. But linking them really and showing the solution in the process that is feasible would be like a very big bonus in contributing to actually promoting access to clean cooking solutions and removing that bias that exists in the community, because people buy because they know. People buy because they know, and information is power, and digital tools is actually one source of that information. So policies need to be put in place. Policies need to be put in place, but also efforts need to be integrated in the long run to promote it.
I totally agree with you. I wanted to speak about the advent of AI, but then I also think that I'll be running faster than my shadow if I want to talk about integrating AI to clean cooking. But then I have really learned a lot, and this has been very, very insightful. Kindly help us to answer the poll questions, please. We need this data for more research around clean cooking. So my final question, Mr. Solomon, which digital innovation do you believe will have the greatest impact on achieving universal clean cooking access by 2030?
Greatest impacts.
The greatest impact.
It's hard to say.
I thought as much.
Yeah, it's hard to say, but if we are to look at it in the context of behavior change, huh? If we are to look at it in the context of behavior change, so this is the assumption I have. The investment is there, they can be able to actually influence buying of these technologies. So if you have to look at it in the context of behavior change, I think social media through, say, big data is still contributing a lot in that context. The direction that I'm thinking of right now is that, okay, we are also looking at money being injected in here. But in simplicity, we need to look at something that is feasible even to the last mile, because in the end, it's the rural communities that are far left out. They're the ones that are really in the below ladder in terms of tiers of clean cooking. Urban communities, for example, have already, like most of them at least, I would say, have embraced clean cooking solutions because probably they had access to the information or they've been educated. Now, the biggest grouping in this case that has been left out has been like the rural communities. So I think for me right now speaking, I would still tie it to big data solutions, which is relying on say social media ads, which could be Facebook, which would be TikTok and the likes, because it's doing a lot. Of course, that comes with ensuring that say internet access is everywhere, like everyone has access. Without internet, then they will not be able access to internet, access to smartphones. Actually, the first thing I would say is everyone should be able to have a smartphone and be able to use internet, because slowly by slowly, I think if you look at how Africa has been growing or how information has been spreading, the bigger thing is promoting access to say smartphone or internet-enabled phones so that information can reach. For example, I'm able to talk to you in Nigeria, but it's because I have a phone that has access to the internet. And if I have an experience that I want to share about say, clean cooking, I can quickly talk to you on phone and make you buy the idea.
True. Well, personally, I think that the PAYGO system would actually have more impact in Africa. This is because we know that digital solutions are really expensive, and by the time we're integrating these expensive solutions into the already expensive appliances, it becomes very discouraging for people to purchase. So if we actually have good financing system, we know that in the long run, these digital solutions would help us to access carbon finance that will eventually subsidize the rate of purchase, the cost of these items. So for me, you think that big data solutions would work. I think that PAYGO systems would work. So either ways, I think it's just really it's highly dependent on which part of Africa that it is being implemented. Thank you so, so much, Mr. Solomon. I am super, super grateful. I have learned so much from you. Thank you to all our participants. I will be handing over to Ms. Johnson to take over from here. Once again, my name is Esuki Pupunte, and it was really, really beautiful having this conversation this afternoon with Mr. Solomon and all of you, of course. Thank you. Ms. Johnson, over to you.
Maybe as she comes, Before you come, just 1 minute. I totally agree with you that one size fit, I mean, not one solution can provide all the answers. We need to actually integrate all these solutions in the end. So if PayGo is going to reduce the cost of the product, that's a plus. If we are putting digital meters, for example, in say technologies to be able to track and offer credible carbon credits, then it's also a plus. So nothing really fits well. It's just the area that you're in, but also looking at just combining all these efforts, doing all. Someone needs to know. Someone also has to be able to afford it. So all those things really play in quite well in promoting it.
Yeah, that's true. Thank you so much. Ms. Johnson, over to you. Thank you.
Thank you, Esther, for the wonderful moderation of the panel session. Thank you, Solomon, for the insights you've shared. Have been really amazing. We've explored the role of digital technologies in enhancing and, of course, expanding access to clean cooking solutions with limits in the areas of production and manufacturing out boost efficiency, as well as the supply side, and even in the aspect of carbon project development and finance, see that they're able to collect real-time data and convert it into the credit application, which is an amazing development in that aspect. So next slide, please. So flowing from the words of Mr. Solomon in his conclusion, he said that clean cooking should not be, in order to sell clean cooking as a sustainable solution, should not be seen as charity or non-profit, rather as a business that can be sold commercially. So on his first step, after speaking webinar, we share opportunities in the clean cooking industry. And it's one thing to know of clean cooking and how to also expand access, but some persons that would want to go into this clean cooking industry as a business or to upscale it as a commercial venture, they might not know where to find opportunities, or some might be looking for these opportunities maybe on the internet or something. And we are always very happy and excited to share these opportunities with our participants and our guests also. For decarbonizing humanitarian energy, this is an opportunity in the clean cooking industry, and it has been sponsored by UNITA. It is a funding and partnership opportunity which applies to Nigeria and Nigeria, and the deadline is 31st of December. You can access this opportunity through the link on the screen. We also have the West Africa Clean Cooking Fund. The deadline as well is on 31st of December 2025. We have about 7 months to work towards that, and it's sponsored by Wellington Companies Foundation. It is funding opportunity, and it applies to West Africa, all countries under West Africa, and you could access this opportunity via the link on the screen as well. We have guarantees for renewable energy investments. The deadline is 31st of December, and anchored by the Norwegian Agency for Public and Financial Management. It's also a funding opportunity, and it applies to ODA funding eligible countries. So you can check that out for more information. Finally, we have supply and storage of institutional scale electric pressure cookers in Tanzania, and the deadline is 28th of April, so 4 days from today. I believe we can still work towards that, and it is under the umbrella of Sustainable Energy for All. It is a procurement contract, and it applies to Tanzania as a country. So we encourage everyone to revisit this link and get to know more about this opportunity, and of course act on it, because the main essence is first to expand clean cooking access access to clean solutions, and of course to make profits. What is business without profit? So, next slide, please. So for our upcoming activities, during the introduction, I told us about the AFCA International Conference on Clean Energy and Energy Storage, and we will be having the third edition this year. The last edition was really amazing. We had people joining from various countries across Africa. It is African, and we had keynote speakers from Mali, and we also had someone from Sweden join us in. And of course, it's all about clean energy and energy storage. And we have about 10 thematic areas where we expecting research papers from. So if you are a PhD student, you're a master's student, even if you're a graduate in the private sector, you work with the government, we look forward to having you at this conference, and we welcome research papers around waste, energy, clean cooking, mini-grid development, anything clean energy and energy storage. The link is in the chat box, so you can follow the link for more information. And of course, the third edition of Africa International Conference on Clean Energy and Energy Storage is taking place at the University of Port Harcourt in Nigeria, and it's taking place on the 26th of September 2025. So we look forward to having you. And also, as one of our upcoming activities, we have the 7th episode of the fourth part. We just concluded the 6th. We're about to conclude the 6th episode, rather, and to further dissect this topic, which is the role of digital technologies in expanding clean cooking access in the 7th episode. So, for those that are very passionate about clean cooking, we have a program we call the Cook Clean Advocate. So basically, the Cook Clean Advocate, next slide please. To become a Cook Clean Advocate, these are the eligibility criteria. Of course, you must demonstrate a basic understanding of Sustainable Development Goal 7, which hinges on access to clean energy. Because to all, irrespective of your location or your affiliation. And you should also be passionate about clean cooking and committed to advocating for sustainable clean cooking solutions. So if you are so passionate about clean cooking and committed to advocating for sustainable clean energy solutions, then you should seize this opportunity. And also, if you have been able to attend at least 5 editions of this webinar, first part webinar, and you're eligible, you must be available for trainings virtually, and of course, complete the Cooking Advocate training module. And finally, you must commit to carrying out at least 1 clean cooking awareness activity in your community. So the link for enrolling and for applying for this is also in the chat box. So do well to take the opportunity and amplify your voice in cooking advocacy. Next slide, please. So it's us saying thank you. Thank you for staying put since 12. You've been here with us. And the presentations as well as panel discussions were quite insightful. It was really informative and eye-opening. Thank you, the Energy Nexus Network. Well, during the webinar, one of our partners, Shamini from the Energy Nexus Network, joined us. Thank you so much for finding time to join us. And of course, thank you, Smart Women Energy Development Organization. And finally, thank you, Veronica Anthony Foundation. These are our partners for the first participating webinar. Thank you, everyone. That you really learned a lot, and you are going home informed and not deformed and more energized to continue advocating in your little space, work, wherever you find yourself. Let's be advocating for clean cooking. Continue. Thank you so much for the amazing moderation. Thank you, everyone, for joining in at this juncture. We'd like to say bye-bye, and we hope to see you, have you on the next episode of this webinar, First Sparks Clean Skin webinar.
Thank you all so much. Thank you, Mr. Solomon. Thank you all our participants for joining. Thank you. See you in the next episode. Bye.
Thank you. Bye.